Olá, está no ar o Campo Diplomático. Meu nome é Gabriel Estrela e hoje eu tenho um convidado especial aqui nos nossos estúdios. Nós já conversamos sobre Bangladesh aqui no canal e é preciso ressaltar que esse país tem crescido enormemente com muita cadência, desenvolvimento sustentável durante, antes e depois da pandemia. O país hoje é o terceiro maior produtor de arroz, com 2 a 3 safras por ano, o quarto maior produtor de pescados de água doce no mundo, tem uma população de 170 milhões de pessoas e uma área comparável ao Amapá. E agora, para celebrar os 50 anos das relações diplomáticas entre o Brasil e o Bangladesh, que começou em 1972, quando o Brasil foi o primeiro país latino-americano de reconhecer sua soberania e independência, abrindo uma embaixada no ano seguinte. Eu tenho a honra de receber aqui nos nossos estúdios o Ministro das Relações Exteriores, Mohammed Shahriar Alam, que está aqui no Brasil em missão oficial. Minister, thank you so much for your participation, for your presence here in our program. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you very much for hosting me. It's truly a pleasure through you to reach out to the Brazilian people.
Well, it's very important for us to bring up-to-date information about the developments and the business opportunities as well with Bangladesh. Now, I'd like to start with asking you, what is the place of that Bangladesh is in at this moment in terms of economical development? It's had a promising history coming from an underdeveloped country that held on to its independence. And today, before the pandemic, it had already a growth that is quite impressive. And throughout the pandemic, it's maintained that level of development in the country. So what can we know about this developments today in Bangladesh?
Thank you. It's very pertinent, and things are going fantastically well. And with humility, I would like to say that you don't get to know when you talk about a country who is doing good, forget about great. But Bangladesh has been doing great up until the COVID. Even the COVID brought some scare, uncertain future. But we struck a fine balance. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's decision was that find a balance between lives and livelihood. And it's not very easy to find such a solution. We have very large manufacturing base, the textile industry that employs over 5 million workers, most of them are female. Sending them back home for an uncertain future is going to be a very difficult task, but it coincided with a national holiday for a week long. So we extended that holiday till another week. So we only had 2 weeks closure. And after that, they came back to work. And these workers work in a compliant garment factories, textile factories. And they listen to the instruction. They follow international norms, rules, and regulation. And COVID was all about those, follow the protocol, wash your hands, wear your mask, keep the distance, and, don't sneeze in public places, report if you are not well. So it went down really well for the garment industry workers. So that was the game changer for Bangladesh. During the COVID, when everyone in the world registered a negative growth, Bangladesh maintained its growth momentum and we achieved 5.2% GDP growth. Today, Bangladesh's per capita income stands at almost $3,000. The total GDP of the country stands $400 billion. And the future is even brighter, better. This year, we have just tabled or passed our budget, rather, at the National Parliament, and that estimates that growth forecast would be anything between 6.75 to 7%. Wow. And for last 10 years, we have been maintaining a growth of 6.5% on an average. Now, alongside that, GDP growth is not the only indicator for economic successes. The fundamentals are also good. We have a $40 billion plus reserve. Country achieved 100% electrification. The food production has been good. But, despite all these achievements, every now and then we are being threatened for climate change. So and other global issues that beyond our control. So considering those, what we are going to do now is we are going to hold on to our wealth and assets. We are adopting some policies till the war in Ukraine gets over and situation in the world gets back to normal. If it ever does, that's the fear. We will be saving some money. So there are some measures taken by the government to reduce dependency on imported fuel, Anything overseas that requires US dollar to buy, consumption will be made less, or at least the citizens were requested and asked to spend less money that involves foreign currency. But that's for only precaution. But the economic fundamentals are way more stronger. In COVID management, Bangladesh was ranked 5th, globally 5th. A country like Bangladesh ranked 5th. It was done by Nikkei in Japan. They have researched on the medical side of the COVID and the economic side of the COVID and the social impacts. So Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina led Bangladesh in a manner for the last 2.5 years that, that successes. So beauty of our country is every now and then we have been stuck with natural calamities, cyclone, flood, droughts. Believe it or not, this week we are facing drought in a northernmost district that produces staple fiber, rice.
Yes.
The same district experienced worse flooding in their history only a month ago. Now, how peculiar is that? A district, and Bangladesh is in a landmass, it's a tiny country. It's 170 million, makes it a huge country. We are only second to Brazil when it comes to 8th or 9th largest or populous country in a very small piece of land. You know, any of your state would be bigger than Bangladesh in size, but in terms of population, you are 210 or 220 million, we are 170 million.
We're coming close to 220.
Yeah. So what I was trying to say is that uncertainty, that threat,
yes.
Natural calamities, we have prepared our citizen to embrace any uncertain shocks. So I think in today's world, post-COVID, Ukraine war, we all need to be prepared for that as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's been quite a journey for the country, and I think looking at water is as a resource and as well as a predicament of how to engage your population in concerning for its development because of these let's say these challenges that we all faced given the climate change that is going on around the country. Now, I would like to start a little bit about agricultural production in the country because you are now the 4th largest producer in fish, which you hold dearly given the benevolence of the water in the country, as well as the rice producing, which also needs a lot of water. Where does Brazil come in terms of maybe technological cooperation in these segments?
Historically, Bangladesh is known for rice and fish. That's our national dish as well. And the silt that brings or comes through floodwater helps to recharge the topsoil. So that's why the land of Bangladesh is very fertile. We get at least 3 crops. If you get vegetables, that has got a shorter cycle, you get multiple 5 or 6 crops sometimes. And there are new technologies, hydroponic, greenhouse and all that. Now, what we are aiming for is more commercializing or kind of more economic crop, fruits that you used to import. We used to import things like strawberries or any sorts of berries were never being produced in Bangladesh. Now we're producing all fruits and vegetables. From Brazil, what we need, and we are already in discussion, businesses are in place, and I'm accompanying a business delegation with me as well, is we do not have large-scale farming. Bangladesh's farms and lands are owned by individual farmers and their families. They sell in the local wholesale market, then it gets distributed. But at the end of the supply chain, at the retail level, the companies who are packaging them are the one who are reasonably large. But at production or harvest, we do not have large companies. That's why we cannot produce things like sugar, things like soybean, and also wheat. And not only that, it's Ukraine war induced, but we always had a plan, and we do buy soybeans and sugar. I think Brazil is the single largest sugar exporter to Bangladesh. So we are looking at those opportunities, and if we find the right partner, we are also happy to work closely with the farmers directly. Bangladesh, we do have a reasonable knowledge of agricultural production, and that's why we are self-sufficient in most of the food items. You name rice, you mentioned about fish, on vegetable, in poultry, for meat, Bangladesh should be ranking in the world anything between 4th to 6th largest producer of these items. But we do not export much because we have 170 million mouth to feed. And then we have about 10 million Bangladeshis living abroad. So the little export we do in food items is for those ethnic markets, people living in the Middle East, in the United Kingdom and United States. So to answer your question straight, one of the purpose, alongside achieving some political milestones bilaterally, to explore and open up new avenues in trade of agricultural producers of Brazil, because you do it fantastically well.
Yeah. And I assume that there is space for also meat exportation from Brazilian side, and
yes.
as well as cotton for the garment industry, which we import as well a lot from Bangladesh, correct?
Cotton is a huge opportunity. We do not export much of clothing. We export to the international brands. So it's not a kind of a direct export as such, even though those products are being sold in Brazilian geographic locations. But there are Brazilian local brands who can be benefited. But I know it's a sensitive market. You know, you also have a strong domestic manufacturing base, and of course, intention is not to disappoint them either. So market will decide at the end of the day. It's a free market economy that largely we all practice and follow. But we import cotton. We can import greater amount of cotton, and if there is a proposal from Brazilian side that in exchange of buying X number of cottons, Brazil will be happy to import X number of garments, we are happy to look into that also. But cotton helps us to keep the industry going, and we convert that whatever $2 kilo cotton to to a finished garments. We add value. We add at least 3 or 4 times value to that raw cotton. So it's complementing each other. So
I think it's a win-win situation in that sense, correct? Well, sustainable development has been, I think, at the DNA of what Bangladesh does nowadays, because you must develop and you must make your industry as sustainable and as climate friendly as possible, given the situation. But the whole world, the actions of all the stakeholders, as we would say in business terms, are responsible for this. So I think Bangladesh has a lot to share with the world in terms of what this really means in terms of infrastructure development as well. And I'd like to know what are margins and developments for business making. I understand that your committee that came to Brazil, that is here now, it was not only with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but several businessmen that are in charge of opening and facilitating business between the two countries. What are your expectations after this visit?
Yeah, I mean, just to touch base on the climate, Bangladesh is one of the least emitter, but one of the worst sufferer of climate change. But we also trying to lead by examples. Talking about textile again, we have 7 platinum graded environment-friendly LEED certified factories, and world has got 10 out of 10. The 7 best factories are in Bangladesh, and we have over 200 gold certified factories and numerous other environment-friendly factories and units. So we are encouraging the customers, even though those manufacturers are not getting any premium for those facilities, but it's a proactive measures that Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's government encouraged, and we get subsidized money from the central bank for setting up such factories. Now, we do have imports of leather, processed leather from Brazil. Cotton is large, but at the same time, I'm sure you will admit that Asia is growing at a faster pace compared to any other region of the world. And Asia used to be the richest continent of the world, or South Asia to be exact, about 4 centuries ago. Greater India was one of the richest country or region in the world. But of course, due to colonial, rather mismanagement and taking away wealth from east to the west, the thing was reversed. But, we have reversed that back. The wealth is again traveling from west to east. But that's not the argument. That's not what we compete for. We live in a modern world. We want to help each other. We want to forget part of the history. We don't want to forget the entire past as such, but it's cooperation. The Brazilian investors can be benefited because we have a very fast-growing middle-income group, both in Bangladesh, India, Nepal as well. And Bangladesh is quite unique is because it sits in a place where Bangladesh almost represents. The reason I use the word represents is Bangladesh give access of our own infrastructure to evacuate or for export-import of Nepalese and Bhutanese foods and other producers. Same applies for the northeastern 7 states of India. They rely on Bangladeshi infrastructures. Otherwise, the only other options that they have is very lengthy and time-consuming and not that greatly profitable. So Bangladesh is working as a connectivity hub, an ideal place for distribution. It makes a lot of commercial sense. 170 million people of Bangladesh can be reached from Dhaka within 6 hours of travel. 95%. That we do have some hilly areas where it's a little remote, but you can reach out to 95% of 170 million within just 6 hours. After building this Padma Bridge, which is a matter of pride, and I compare this like you winning the World Cup. So a bridge. There's a lot of history behind it. If the viewer of this program do some research in the Google, they'll know why so. Because we have spent over $3 billion after World Bank pulled out, and spent our own money to build $3 billion project. Until we committed, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina said yes to the Padma Bridge using her own finance. We never delivered a project that worth about $1 billion even. So that's the first, our first billion was 3 billion, if I may put it that way. So, there's a lot to be done. The manufacturers in Brazil who thinks that rather in the supply chain towards the end of the chain, the finished product can be sold in the region, I think they should choose Bangladesh. We're setting up 100 economic zones. Good 15 of them are up and running. There are country-specific ones as well. Indians are using a couple of them. The Chinese are using dedicated ones. The Koreans are using a dedicated KEPZ, Korean Export Processing Zone. The Japanese are building one as we speak, and Bangladesh was termed by Japanese investors as the most attractive investment destination. So, we can very well provide one for the Mercosur or for Brazil or for Latin America.
Speaking about Latin America, last week a Argentine group of diplomats went to Dhaka, and they expressed a large interest in opening an embassy up. But that only to say that there has been negotiation in opening up more trade with Mercosur, perhaps a free trade agreement. How is that going at this moment?
Yeah, there was a very welcoming visit, and it's not just the foreign secretary visited, it's almost the entire team. They are currently based in Delhi, but the trade and commerce consulars, they also visited, and they have promised that they will be visiting Bangladesh every month. So, they have found surely something interesting in Bangladesh. And, as I said in your first question, the answer that I gave, that you haven't heard of many successes or stories, and it's a success story being written by Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina for 175 million people that's impacting the regional countries as well. So it's not just 170 million that's growing and prospering. The forecast of next 20 years also suggests that Bangladesh will keep on rising. A country that keeps on rising for last 10 years makes it per capita income from $800 to almost $3,000. You can imagine if you do a regular math even and then reduce it by 20%, where Bangladesh will end up in next 20 years. So that makes Bangladesh a very attractive location. I'm glad that the attractions of Latin American countries or their eyes or radar is reaching out to Bangladesh.
Very good. And I keep curious because Brazil is a big exporter of soy, corn, wheat. We are developing technology to grow wheat in different parts of the country that are traditionally not adequate places to grow this kinds of crop. And you benefit a lot from this importation. And I'd like to know, is there margin for new products that are there? For example, sugar is a big export of ours, but also ethanol. Would that be of interest in order for there to be any development?
Yeah, definitely. The world is dying for alternative fuel. Yeah. Yes. And you master in ethanol. The opportunities that we had, we kind of wasted it or lost it. We used to produce sugarcane. We have at least 15 government-owned, very large, old-style sugar manufacturing units where we crush sugarcane and we produce sugars. But government closed down recently 8 out of those 15, and we have a plan to phase out the rest. So we'll be relying on a lot on imported sugar, and it's a big market. We consume a lot of sugar as much as you do as well. So that's an area, and very much so ethanol as well as an alternative fuel. So in fact, Honorable Foreign Minister here yesterday during our meeting mentioned about ethanol, and this is something we will follow through during our Foreign Office consultation and various other meetings in coming days.
And is there room for technological development in pharmaceutical companies from Bangladesh to Brazil? Can we expect more cooperation
very
in that
much
sector?
So. We covered that as well. Probably you are aware, or probably not all the viewers are aware, that Bangladeshi pharmaceutical qualifies all requirements by FDA and European Union. We have around about 100 manufacturing of pharmaceuticals units, but 6 or 7 of them are world class. And we export, we have registered, licensed, patented product under FDA in the United States, owned by Bangladeshi companies. That's amazing. And also to European Union as well. Bangladesh literally exports pharmaceutical products to all the countries in the world. You will find out odd countries that we are not exporting yet for different reasons. But so this is a huge opportunity, and Brazilian businesses can be benefited because you are the biggest, largest economy and almost the capital for the rest of the Latin American countries. Brazil is the gateway. So I think there are opportunities for private businesses to work together in that respect as well.
And in the scientific area with agricultural production, we touched base a little bit on technological cooperation, but is there exchange possibilities between scientists, between the two countries, in order to develop technologies and for us to learn as well technologies that are suited in Bangladesh for maybe our populations?
Yeah, Bangladesh responded very well when International Rice Research Institute, ED, came to set up their operation about 3 or 4 decades ago. And since then, we have tripled or quadrupled our rice output. And Bangladesh is currently world's 3rd or 4th largest rice producer. But it's so climate sensitive, not enough rain and excessive rain at the right point of time or right, it has got a 90 to 110 day cycle. So if it doesn't rain or it rains too much on a particular week, let's say the crop is into 50 days before the harvest. So it impacts adversely. So that's why we, so far, 2 research was truly successful. One was a drought-resist variety of rice, where it requires lesser amount of water to cultivate, and also a saline-resist variety of rice. We have done that with the help of Australia and ED as well, because in the coastal area, every now and then the rice fields are inundated with water, and that water is high salinity, saline water. So there are scope to increase the production for Bangladesh. We have reached to a level where the next extra 10% will be much more difficult than the previous 20% growth that we had in our production, because we have reached to that optimum level almost. So we can very much, I'm sure there is something in that we can share with Brazilian farmers, the associations and harvesters, not only in that particular area, but in many other fields. So we will be looking for opportunities if it's there for contract farming. I know 1 or 2 countries are taking interest into a soybean for long-term production. Bangladesh will be actively considering that in coming future.
And Minister, we're arriving at the end of the program. I'd like to know, what are some of the challenges that we have today that we need to resolve in order for business to work better? I think we could say that the language is obviously one of these factors, is it not?
Yeah, I wish I could speak as much as you speak English. The minimum Portuguese Brazilian is expected, but unfortunately we don't. we are investing in our diplomats. There are talks between the foreign service training academies for cooperation, but in businesses. But language never, a barrier for diplomacy or relation as such. But for businesses, it is. But apart from languages, we have Bangladeshi products are mostly subject to higher tariff here. But under the WTO guideline, as a LDC, still we haven't completely graduated. We deserve a better import duty regime. But since we are coming out of LDC, what we are going to do is we are going to address the entire Mercosur and look for a reciprocal arrangements. Whether it's PTA or FTA. I know it's a long journey. It takes a lot to achieve that, but we have tabled the idea. In the next phase, we need to formalize and start the negotiation process. Apart from that, there's no other issues, but I guess banking, we probably need a Brazilian bank as an advising office in Bangladesh or vice versa. But I haven't heard any complaint as such from the businesses. We talk about ease of movement of people, and that has been addressed. One of the milestones of my visit is to sign the agreement for visa waiver for diplomats and official passport holders. And even though it's not applicable for businesses and other tourists, but it will impact that community as well, because embassy will be offloaded from the pressure of issuing these official visas, so they can accommodate more private sector visas. So that's addressed as well. But exchange of high-level visits. We haven't done justice in the last 10 years. We have started that, and I'm sure Brazilian side will be reciprocating that immediately after the election here.
I'm very sure. Our countries are 16,000 kilometers away, and I'm sure your visit now has shortened that distance for sure. Thank you very much for your participation.
And we need help like news agencies and journalists, friends like yourselves, to take these stories to the people of Brazil. And same applies in our case as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. E para você que acompanhou o nosso programa, muito obrigado pela audiência. Não esqueça de acompanhar a nossa programação e os conteúdos no nosso canal no YouTube. E também acesse as nossas redes sociais, @AgroMais TV. Eu fico por aqui e aguardo você no nosso próximo encontro.